4, 3, 2, 1.
चंदा मामा बहुत दूर के हैं। अब एक दिन वो भी आएगा जब बच्चे कहा करेंगे चंदा मामा बस एक टूर के हैं।
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm here not as an anchor or an editor, but as an Indian. A proud Indian who's seen history being created by the sheer diligence, perseverance, and ingenuity of our nation and its scientists. Today, I salute India, my nation, our pride. Powered by 1 billion prayers, the Chandrayaan has landed on the moon. With a successful soft landing near the dark side of the moon, India will leave its mark not just in space exploration but also the moon. Quite literally, the national emblem and the ISRO logo are imprinted on the rover's wheels as it rolls out. It leaves a mark on the layer of rock and dust on the moon's bedrock. The nation cheered and the world watched in awe. India may be the 4th nation to land on the moon, but it is the only one to land near the lunar south pole. The dark craters of moon may contain ice or water, which is crucial for human habitation. India's mission may be paving the way for us to live on the moon on a shoestring budget at that. India has accomplished a lunar mission where every component was made indigenously. While the United States, China and Russia spent between $220 million to $100 billion, India's Chandrayaan 3 mission was accomplished with a mere $74 million or 615 crore rupee budget. The Prime Minister was present virtually for the moment of Chandrayaan's landing. He called this moment a dawn of a new India. Listen in to the Prime Minister.
जब हम अपनी आंखों के सामने ऐसा इतिहास बनते हुए देखते हैं तो जीवन धन्य हो जाता है। ये क्षण नए भारत के जयघोष का है। भारत में तो हम सभी लोग धरती को मां कहते हैं और चांद को मामा बुलाते हैं। कभी कहा जाता था चंदा मामा बहुत दूर के हैं। चंदा मामा बहुत दूर के हैं। अब एक दिन वो भी आएगा जब बच्चे कहा करेंगे चंदा मामा बस एक टूर के हैं।
The Prime Minister also personally called and spoke to the ISRO chief. But listen in to what Dr. Somnath said right after the successful landing of Chandrayaan 3.
We are very happy about this mission. It has been such a great mission. Achieved the touchdown very, very safely. Beyond our expectations, I must say. But we were expecting this to happen today. We were not tense at all because we have done the work. And because work is done very well, there will not be any possibility of any more failures or issues. That we were very confident. India, now you have a piece of moon with you. You can have the rightful claim on it. Future generations can claim it.
And joining me tonight on the News Hour is the one and only Neil deGrasse Tyson to decode for us what this mission really means, not just for India, but for the world. Thank you for joining me, Mr. Tyson. And how big a deal is the landing of Chandrayaan 3 on the South Pole or near the South Pole of the moon?
Well, I like to think of it in many ways. First, as you said in the introduction, India is now the fourth country to send a mission safely to the moon. And I think this bodes well for a future where the moon becomes part of the backyard for the entire world. 4 countries today, maybe 8 countries in 10 years, and maybe everybody eventually. That's just the first comment here. Second, the South Pole is an intriguing part of the moon. No one has been there before. So you're the first in the door to that part of the moon. What makes the South Pole interesting is, and I haven't seen this fully explained out there, so give me a moment to say, you may know on Earth, as you go away from the equator towards the poles, the sun doesn't get very high in the sky. If you go up to like the north, near the North Pole, the sun just stays low on the horizon, never gets to high overhead. Well, that's true on the moon as well, except the moon also has craters. And so if you are a crater near the pole, and craters have rims, so if you're at the bottom of the crater, the sun never gets high enough to have its sunlight reach the bottom of the crater. So the bottom of the crater stays cold. It never heats up. And the moon has clearly been hit by asteroids and comets throughout its 4.5 billion year life. You can ask, where did the water go from the comets? Well, if the comet landed where the sun shines, that water can just evaporate back into space. But wherever the water deposits, whenever the water deposits at the bottom of one of those dark craters, it stays forever. And we call it a cold trap. And this only happens at the poles, because anywhere else the sun gets high enough to reach inside of the bottoms of the craters. Why is this important? Because future missions of astronauts, you don't want to haul everything from Earth to the moon to survive. And water, you can, if there's water there in abundance, you can drink the water. You can separate the hydrogen and the oxygen, H2O, separate them. Those two recombined make rocket fuel. So it's very likely that the future of moon bases will find themselves near the poles rather than anywhere else on the moon.
Oh, so we're looking at light there, but I remember you spoke to us about 4 years ago and you said space is tough. How confident were you that this mission, unlike the last one 4 years ago, would be successful? Did you really believe?
Yeah, so let me just make it clear that when Chandrayaan 2 failed, I thought to myself, okay, that's a learning experience, right? In science and in engineering, if you're on the frontier and you're doing something that no one has done before, you kind of expect some failures. That's how this works. I was once told by an advisor in graduate school, he said, the day you stop making mistakes is the day you are no longer on the frontier. So I said to myself, as long as you learn from those mistakes, as they clearly did for this third mission, they looked back and they said, oh, this is where the altimeter failed, and we needed more redundancy in the sensors and in the mechanisms. And a redundancy is a good thing. Normally it's not a good thing on Earth. Don't be redundant, you know. But in space missions, if one piece of material has a task and that task fails and that affects the entire mission, what you want is a backup for that, and that would be a redundancy plan. So once I saw that this next mission built in corrections to the second mission, I said, okay, this will surely go in. If it fails, it won't be for the same reasons that the second one failed. And sure enough, it was a successful soft landing. Congratulations to India. I bring greetings from the United States and surely from the entire world on this.
Were you as sure as some Indians were that this particular mission would be successful? What did you
the
think?
mission is not finished, okay? I mean, don't, as they say in the expression,
that.
don't count your chickens before they hatch. This thing still has to hatch. I think at the time we are having this conversation, I don't know that the rover has yet been deployed, or if it has, it's just happening right now. So there's a lot more to do. Yes, you want to land smoothly and safely. That's just the beginning. Okay. So in other words, it's the end of the beginning. Okay. Not the beginning of the end. So now there's, you got to do the experiments. Are these lunar soils, do they contain the water that we think they do? What other minerals are present? There's a whole geology experiment that's going to happen here. Of course, geo means Earth, moonology experiment that is going to unfold here. And this will be the first set of data to return from this part of the moon. And Prime Minister Modi, when he visited the United States, I had the privilege of meeting him on that visit. When he went to Washington, he signed the Artemis Accord. The Artemis Accord is an agreement among spacefaring nations to cooperate in space, to share data, to say, if you found a problem, share that with others so they don't face that problem. And this is very important. If the nearby space and the solar system is to become our collective backyard. So we're in this together. So India can now share the data from the South Pole, and now everyone doesn't have to land there or not in that same spot because the data are being shared. And this cooperation, I cannot overstate the value of that going forward.
Well, so let me ask you, Mr. Tyson, when you mention the fact that you met with Prime Minister Modi during his visit to the United States, what was your meeting all about? And was there a conversation on Chandrayaan 3? And what did the Prime Minister say to you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I was honored that he called for me to visit him. He must have known that I've appeared in Indian television, perhaps, or my writings. I gifted him one of my books on space exploration, and the press was there for that first encounter, and I read my inscription to him, and I said, to Prime Minister Modi, for whom the sky is not the limit. I said that's in the inscription. Then, like 2 days later, at the press conference with President Biden, someone asked about the future of India, and I think he said those very words. For India, the sky is not the limit. So this is a good attitude and a good feeling to have. When we began our conversation, the press left. So it was, I guess it was sort of a private conversation. I think he didn't want me to feel constrained by cameras and reporters. But he shared with me his plans to open the future space activities of India to private enterprise. And he wanted to know what I thought of that. And I said, yeah, it's a good idea. Private enterprise can help make things efficient, although based on the cost of this mission, Chandrayaan 3, that's as efficient a landing as anybody has ever sent to the moon, okay? Coming in at, like you said, 74, the equivalent of 74 million US dollars. We've done that for 5 times that money, okay? Twice.
Your movies,
you're doing good there,
your movies
okay?
cost more than that. Interstellar cost double, double of that amount.
Hollywood movies cost more than that, yes. At Bollywood movies, I don't know how much they cost, but Hollywood movies cost at least that much. Big blockbusters. So when you open up to private enterprise, then it's not just the government's priorities driving exploration, because other people have other priorities. We're seeing the birth of space tourism. There's scientific interests in space. There's communication interests. There is weather forecasting, climate change. Everybody, different sectors have different interests in what space can provide us. So that's a good thing. So I said, yeah. What he also said was he wanted to set up exploration centers. I think he had a slightly different term for them, where children can go and explore their curiosity and stimulate their interest in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math. He wanted to know what I thought of that, and I said, yeah, children are born scientists. I say that, but what do children do? They ask questions. They turn over rocks. They look behind trees. They explore. They make a mess of your house. And we complain about that as adults, but that mess that they make is their exploration. Oh, I guess those images of me. Yes. So it did actually happen. Yes.
What he probably meant was that he wanted Indians to start young, so that the habit of research and exploration develops. Is that what he was trying to say?
Yes, yes. So if we know they're curious, but now there's a system to nurture it and try to make sure that it doesn't leave them as they approach adolescence and into adulthood. Because from where I stand, a full-grown scientist is still a kid, right? They're just a kid that has more training to ask questions about the world. Another point I made, and this is very important, because we had to go through this in my own country, okay? Throughout the space program, we were in the Apollo program, we were in the middle of the civil rights movement, okay? Where not everyone had equal access to opportunity. And so a point I made with the Prime Minister is, if you want the fullest participation in the country, you want to make sure it's not just the Hindus, but the Muslim children, where both Hindu have legacy. The Hindu traditions in science and mathematics go way back. So too in Islam, the golden age of Islam, a millennium ago, where major advances in science and technology, and especially math. So now you have two legacies that can be brought together in the service of peace, where where space exploration could be one of the greatest forces of peace the world has seen ever. So I have great hopes for the future of this as a plan for the Indian nation.
Amazing. Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, may I just request you to just bear with me for a moment, because the man of the moment, chairman of ISRO, Dr. S Somnath, joining me live on the show. Good evening and many congratulations to you, Mr. Somnath. And how does it feel today? Are you still waiting for the rover to come out of the lander? Is the mission fully accomplished, or are you still holding your breath?
There is a lot of things to do tonight, the preparation for further activities. So we are trying to have the rover to come out, and a lot of activities are happening towards that. So it will happen the whole of the night.
And in the last 19 minutes of terror, as they are called, what was going through your mind? Were you keeping your fingers and toes crossed, or were you completely confident that nothing could go wrong this time?
See, we are very confident about what we did, the work we did, but we were not confident about the results. The results will come if the work is good. So what I was speaking about our confidence is with regard to what we did in our capacity to understand the complexity and implement the algorithms and hardwares, and also test it to our satisfaction. So that was done, so that gave us extreme confidence to go ahead. But then things can go wrong in missions like this. So we were aware of it, we are conscious about it. But what we did is things can go wrong, still how to mitigate that problem and how to overcome that and still make a landing. That was our planning. And today, fortunately, nothing went wrong. It was all in the nominal path and landed safely. So we are very relieved of that part.
Dr. Somnath, was there any moment of nervousness, butterflies in your stomach at any point? Are scientists also human?
I don't get any such things because we work with engineering systems, complex systems. So we have been, in fact, personally, I would have sat in at least 60 odd launch missions of ISRO. So I am very conscious about successes and failures and things associated with each of them. So we look at it in a different manner. We look at it very unattached to it, to be conscious about the problems that can happen and how to solve them. So we don't get into that feelings within us. And of course, if it happens successfully, we are very much relieved of, and we are becomes very jubilous of the whole accomplishment. But otherwise, we get back to work again to understand what went wrong. So today it was a cool event for us.
Cool. Okay. And when the Prime Minister called you and your team, what did he say to you?
He was very, very happy, thrilled to see the landing, and he got very excited about it and congratulated me personally as well as all the ISRO scientists. And he wished that he could be with us and also personally congratulate each one of them. And he also assured that we will do much more in science exploration missions in ISRO. So that's what he's told us.
And what was your first words to your team?
I said that I thank them because it is for their hard work that we are, getting it today as a result of success. So thank them for their hard work. It is not like an governmental system we work. We work very, very passionately with full dedication and not worried about hours of work. So that passion is what drives us to do many, many things. And for that, we can give them our heart and thanks to them. So that is what I did, and motivate them to do more. And everybody is thrilled by its own accomplishment that they have. So they don't have to be motivated by words, but they are self-motivated bunch of people who are contributing to it. But I said that we have more to come. So your success means more work is in the offing. That's what I told them.
Dr. Somnath, how much more time do we have to wait for the rover to come out of the lander?
Some more hours.
Okay. We also have author and astrophysicist Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson with us, who wants to congratulate you. Can you go on, Mr. Tyson?
I would be delighted. Of course, congratulate. I bring greetings from the United States. Congratulations on this accomplishment, not just getting to the moon safely and softly, but the place on the moon where you have chosen. This will open up an entire future of exploration in that area, possibly preparing a future of colonies on the lunar poles where we can tap the natural resources there. First and foremost, of course, the water that we think is there. So we're all looking very closely to what your results will be going forward.
So, Dr. Somnath, are you looking forward to having Mr. Tyson as your neighbor on the moon?
Hopefully, yes, of course. We will be working together, of course.
And sir, I don't believe you that you didn't have butterflies in your stomach when it was landing and you didn't know?
No. Absolutely no.
Okay, that's a very confident, absolutely
that's
not.
the right stuff right there.
Yeah, that's strong stuff. But between 2019 and today, how difficult was it? Did it always weigh on your mind, Dr. Somnath, of the missed opportunity and how things would turn out this time around? Was that weighing on your mind?
Yes, of course, because last time we narrowly missed it. We could have made it last time, but for some issues. So we addressed not only those issues that came after a very thorough failure analysis study. We also looked at what can further go wrong. We made all of those issues sorted out, then built a lot of ruggedness around the issues, how to mitigate each of them if they happen. Then the most important thing is in the last many years, we did hundreds of tests of various kinds, and each one of them gave a lot of inputs to make further changes and modifications. And that gave us the confidence to build the final craft.
I also want to ask you, Dr. Somnath, when you decided the dates of the launch, etc., what were the factors that determined the period, the timing of the launch?
See, we have to reach moon on this day. That is the first thing that we fixed, because this is a day which actually sun lights up one day later. So this the day at that location begins yesterday, maybe just one day prior. So we have to land on this location so that we'll get 14 full days of sunlit for our experiments to happen. So then we work back to see when it has to be launched, depending upon the trajectory design, the mission design, the fuel budget, the launcher capability, and worked out the launching date. So this is and with some allowances, so that if something goes wrong, some performance not be good, we should still be able to make it up on the 23rd. So 23rd was first fixed. Then everything was worked backward through a mathematical simulation. Then we found out when it should be launched. That's how it is calculated.
Dr. Somnath, what does this mean looking forward to other missions, to the Mars, the Mangalyaan, Gaganyaan? What does it mean for research and breaking new barriers in the coming years?
See, all of you are aware that Chandrayaan-1 gave very important findings of finding water molecules on the moon. And Chandrayaan-2 found, it actually imaged the moon to such a clarity that it never ever done before by any moon missions. So we have a very highest resolution image of the moon and many other scientific findings which I am not going to explain here, which is well known in the world scientific community. And Chandrayaan-3 is going to do the same with the landing and rover experiments on board these two. Very interesting 5 experiments are there. So the scientific community is upbeat about the data that we have been providing. It is not only within India, but it's also shared globally for other scientists to make use of it and find their own inferences out of it. So we believe the interest in moon is increasing, and it is our contribution, and also the nation's footprint on the moon makes us all proud.
Dr. Somnath, when the Russian mission failed just a few days ago, did it lead to any nervousness within your team?
No. See, those mission design and details are not available to us. So how they did it and what went wrong there are not known to us. So since we are not fully aware of it, it doesn't cause us any worry.
The fact that India now is the top nation to actually be near the southern pole, how important was that, and how difficult was it to plan and launch the mission closer to the south pole of the moon?
The South Pole is a difficult terrain. In terms of the nature of the terrain, it is much more having boulders and craters, so that is one. And it is also, the location has to be so chosen that we have sufficient sunlight without shadow effect. And the South Pole also has a possibility of, if anything happens to the mission, missing out the possibility. That is also very high. And we also have temperature excursions much more deeper in southern area. But the scientific interest is very high there because it is having higher potential of discovery of various other elemental composition, presence of water, and many others. So we have to accomplish that landing in the South Pole in spite of all the difficulties. So that way, we are very happy that we being the first nation to touch down softly on the southern pole and going to do some experiments there, which means scientifically and with respect to the position of us in the Committee of Nations, it's really important.
Well, Dr. Somnath, a billion prayers were up there for you and your team, and today there are a billion blessings coming your way, and the fact that we have the Tiranga on the moon. What's your message to the nation?
See, let us celebrate this accomplishment of landing on the moon. It also shows that we people, Indians, can design, develop our own rockets, spacecrafts, and go up to moon and do things on the way we want to do. It's a 100% made in India mission, and let's be proud of our accomplishments and be hopeful of our journey in the next 25 years in the Amartkal, making it greater accomplishments in the days to come. We have many things in the waiting: science missions, human space flight, and the expansion of the space sector significantly. So we look forward to all of this.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Somnath. Many congratulations to you. A huge round of applause and congratulations from every single viewer watching you tonight and hearing your voice. And what can I say? Jai Hind.
Thank you so much. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
sir. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Tyson, you heard the ISRO chairman there, controlled, no emotions, absolutely focused on the job at hand. I don't know, are scientists made by a different god than us normal human beings? I don't know. but I want to ask you, last time around you said that you loved every bit of the mission of Chandrayaan-2, not only the technological and scientific ambitions, but the cultural impact. What is this cultural impact that you talked about?
Just in terms of what effect it can have on a population. I mean, we see it now in the associated imagery that you have on this broadcast, and people were dancing in the streets. It is possible for a nation to take on a large goal, a goal where if it succeeds, everyone feels like they were a participant. And this could be very uplifting for a culture, for a nation, for the world. And so I think these kinds of this form of exploration is maybe even unique because, by the way, when you finally put in an astronaut into orbit, astronauts are some of the greatest ambassadors we've ever created as a civilization. Astronauts are welcomed everywhere. And when they speak, we are silent because we want to hear what they have to say. They've seen Earth in ways no one else has seen Earth. They've seen it from above, where national borders dissolve away. They see Earth as a planet. They have perspectives. So space is different from other forms of human exploration. And I used to think I was biased in saying that as an astrophysicist, but I'm not. And your video of people, as I say, dancing in the streets is testament to that.
Absolutely. I also want to ask you, the US is planning to land men and women on the south pole of the moon in 2025. How is today's landing on the south pole of the moon important in terms of that mission? And what is really the significance for the scientific community?
So that's an excellent question. And so in the Artemis Accord, with data being shared by space missions taken by anyone who's part of that accord, what we can do is say, once the rover deploys and does its measurements and the lander does its measurements, we can say, do those measurements influence whatever planned experiments we have in mind? Because if you do discover some element, be it the water molecule or some minerals that we had an experiment to see if it's there, then we can readjust that next experiment to look for the next round of minerals, for example, because this is how science works. We stand on the shoulders of those who come before you. You don't try to always ask the same question and answer it the same way. You want every next mission to advance our understanding of the Earth-Moon system, of the moon itself, of the South Pole region. And by the way, something I wanted to slip into the comments about the challenges of landing on the South Pole, as the head of your space agency noted, there's many more craters and rocks and boulders. The Apollo missions to the moon targeted the smoothest places there are. Okay, the Sea of Tranquility. It's called a sea because we used to think it was just water because it's so flat until we learned there's no water there. But we chose the smoothest places so that whatever might fail in the lunar mission, it won't be because it landed sideways on a cliff. So the Chandrayaan 3 had extra fuel and extra maneuvering ability so that it could find a place that would not have its landing position put itself in danger. So I just wanted to emphasize what was overcome to land on the South Pole. So now, when we send a crewed mission to the South Pole, we're going to do other experiments. And once we gather more and more information about that region, we can tune what might be necessary if we are ever to have a settlement there, to have a permanent laboratory. We have a permanent laboratory. The world has a permanent laboratory near the Earth's South Pole. There's an international laboratory there where there's cooperation, data are shared. So we have models for this going forward.
Do you think we will have a lunar colony in the moon? Because after the Apollo missions, people stopped going to the moon or looking at the moon very closely. Now, are we picking up some real estate there?
Yeah, I don't know. If we're candid about my own American history, we didn't go to the moon because we're explorers and it's in our DNA. We went to the moon because we were scared of the Soviet Union. And if they got to the moon first, they would have the high ground. What does that mean? Does that influence our safety, our democracy? So there was a lot of geopolitics going on at the time. And then when we learned they were not going to the moon, we ended the Apollo program. Okay? It's not that we lost our drive. It's that we lost the geopolitical force that was sending us there in the first place. Right now, all of these missions are peaceful. So that's a good thing. And so a colony on the moon, I don't foresee people living there permanently, but you can have visiting scientists come and spend time, maybe set up telescopes across where the dark area is. I can imagine all kinds of science that would unfold there.
And would there
So
be
yeah, I
some
look forward to what
aliens
comes.
there?
Say again?
Because that's what folklore is all about, on the dark side
moon
of the
aliens. Did you say aliens on the moon?
moon. Yeah, dark side of
Yeah.
the moon.
That could be fun to find aliens. That would be a new form of life. So we bring biologists with us. All right, that would be discovery. I love it. I want to meet the aliens. Bring them on.
Mr. Tyson, on a serious note, how does this really change India's position on the high table in the world? You know, many people even today think India is a poor country. It's a land of elephants and snake charmers all over. That's sometimes the imagery that India does draw. Today, with the Chandrayaan 3 landing on the dark side of the moon, and the fact that India's Chandrayaan is successful where Russia's moon mission hasn't been, does that really change the perception of India in the world today?
So the elephants and snake charmers, that's interesting. That's an aspect of what we learn about India, of course. But in modern times, there's the subset of the Indian population who have risen in the scientific and technological world that have borne their brilliance in the rest of what's going on in the world. There's no shortage of Indians in the United States who are leaders in our tech world. So I think in recent decades, no, Americans were not thinking of India as a place of snake charmers. No. Maybe 50 years ago, not today. All right. Some of our highest tech people have Indian roots. They may be American citizens, but they came from India. Okay. And they're latter day American citizens. So we know the potential of the Indian population here in the United States. That's my first point. Second is about the poverty. Yes, surely you have people there saying, why are we spending money up in space when we have such abject poverty here on Earth? That's a legitimate question to ask. But allow me to say that India had poverty before anyone spent a dime on space. Okay, so you can't look at space and say that's why you have poverty, or you shouldn't have poverty because you have space. Those are false equivalencies. What I can tell you is, if there's any hope of raising a nation out of poverty, it's investments in science and technology.
Absolutely.
Every place in the world where that has happened, the economy of that nation has risen, and the base level of who you call poor has risen, so India has a long way to go in that department. Yes, but I know of no greater force than ambitions in space that can operate on the economy of a nation, because tomorrow's economies will pivot on innovations in science and technology today.
Absolutely. And just before I let you go, in the last 1 decade, do you think India has grown in stature on the global forum?
I think, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think in your borders, but India has always been a very important country in this world. The largest democracy, now the largest country in the world, passing China in population by the latest numbers that I've seen, and how deep and strong the culture is. But anyone who visits India is completely consumed by everything Indian there that was retained long after the period of colonization from England, right? And India, we finally saw India in the Olympics. Okay, that was a shot putter. Welcome to the Olympics now. So there's a lot of upside. Dare I repeat this earlier comment that the sky is not the limit for India, and it depends on how you need wise governance. And I cannot overemphasize that you want all citizens to participate in this. Because if the United States were today the way it was in the 1960s, you would not be interviewing a black person about your space program. Because I had opportunities that arose over those decades that previously I was shut off from because of laws and legislations and attitudes. So it's important that everybody participates.
Absolutely. And India looking forward to make bigger strides in the times to come. But it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show on such a big day when India celebrates its coming of age of its own scientific programs as well as of its moon mission. Thank you very much, Neil deGrasse Tyson, for joining me on the news.
Thank you.